Hello, and welcome to This is USG, a video podcast by the universities at Shady Grove. 9 universities, 1 campus, great results. I'm Ann Khademian, the Executive Director of the universities at Shady Grove. Tonight, our focus is on economic development in Montgomery County, the challenges of a post-COVID economy, and the role that higher education plays in supporting and boosting both economic and workforce development. Our guests tonight bring tremendous experience and expertise to this topic, and they represent 2 powerful and essential institutions in the economic development of Montgomery County. Gigi Godwin is the President and CEO of Montgomery County Chamber of Commerce. Gigi, welcome.
Thank you.
Ben Wu is the President and CEO of Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation. Ben, welcome.
Thank you, Ann. It's great to be here.
Great to have you both here. I'm going to ask you both to just do a little bit of an introduction. You have fascinating backgrounds. You've had a lot of experience in this area, but in different types of government and different nonprofit world. I wonder if you could both just share a little bit about your path to your present role. Gigi, why don't we start with you?
Well, thank you, Ann, and thanks so much for inviting both of us today to be with you. Ben and I work very closely together, and it's always a great opportunity when we can reflect together and talk about where we came from and where we're headed. So we're delighted to be your guest today. Thank you. I'm Gigi Godwin. I'm President and CEO of the Montgomery County Chamber of Commerce. And actually, it's fun to answer the question about what was the path. I was fortunate. I grew up in a steel town, and I saw what it looks like when an economy doesn't work. I grew up in a very, very culturally diverse community, and I happen to be a first-generation American. And so I believe in all things that support access to opportunity, which is why I love the work that USG does. That's why I know education and access to higher education is so important. And that's frankly why I care deeply about having a vibrant economy that offers a lot of opportunities for anyone and everyone, all welcome. And so that's kind of, what gets me up in the morning and all the things that have to do with that. It takes partnerships, it takes a village, it takes a community, it takes the business community, employers and employees, it takes a talent base, which is where you come in. And so that's why it's so important for us to have these conversations. I have a legislative background and a business background. Those come in handy so that I can understand the things that we need to do. We're an advocacy organization. The Chamber is, unlike most county chambers, we advocate at the federal level and state and county level because we know that advocacy is important. The results of advocacy shape the marketplace, and that's important for creating and ensuring opportunity.
Thank you, Gigi. That's terrific. What a great story. Thank you. Ben,
Thank you.
Ben, why don't you share with us, what's your path to the Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation?
Well, Ann, let me first say that I'm happy to be with Gigi and to follow Gigi. We've been a great partner for so long. And I consider Gigi, since Super Bowl Sunday was yesterday, sort of like the Tom Brady of Montgomery County on economic development. She's had so many accomplishments, and we keep winning with Gigi heading up the chamber. And it's great to be on her team.
Feeling is mutual, Ben. I love working together.
Well, I came, in a sense, back to Montgomery County to take on my current position. I, like Gigi, I'm a first-generation American. I was born in Taiwan and came over to the United States, and we settled in Maryland, in Montgomery County, in Bethesda. So Montgomery County is all really I've known, and I grew up here, went to public school here, and while I went elsewhere for college and law school, I came back to Montgomery County to work for Montgomery County Congresswoman Connie Morella. And I was with Connie for 13 years working on the Hill. And then I was nominated to be the Deputy Undersecretary of Commerce by President Bush, and also the Assistant Secretary of Commerce for Technology Policy. And then subsequently, I had a chance to work for several governors in Maryland, Bob Ehrlich, and then also most recently Larry Hogan, where I was the Deputy Secretary of Commerce for the governor. So, I know how important Montgomery County is to our state's economy. Maryland does very well in its economy, in our innovation-led technology economy. But we also have to continue to maintain our preeminence from technology and education. That's why USG can play such an important role. Montgomery County is 25% of our state's GDP. And so we have an outsized role in making sure that our state continues to prosper economically. Back before the pandemic, Montgomery County helped to lead the state in having the highest job growth in the Mid-Atlantic, and also one of the lowest unemployment rates in the country, and one of the lowest unemployment rates we've had here in Maryland for several decades. But the pandemic has changed everything. And while our unemployment rate is still strong compared to other parts of the country, we know that we need to adjust to recalibrate and realign our economy to meet not just the challenges for economic recovery for the pandemic, but also to be able to take this crisis and create new opportunities that will make us even stronger as we get to the other side of this crisis and this pandemic.
Well, thanks for taking us there to the pandemic focus, Ben. And I also want to say thank you for that great analogy of, Tom Brady and the team, because Montgomery County really does do a lot of things together. There's a lot of teamwork, and I think the way you two work together is really a great indication of that as well. But let's talk about the pandemic. I think maybe Gigi, let's start with you. If you want to go take us back a year ago. Just before everything shut down, what was a snapshot of Montgomery County a year ago in terms of what we were looking forward to, what we were anticipating, and what do you see as the big changes? And Ben, I'll ask you the same thing. If you both want to reflect on that, that would be great.
Right. Well, thanks for that question. And so, one of the expressions that we often use, or that we've been using at the chamber, is that it's a tale of two economies. And so a year ago, what did that mean? Well, we have our commercial side, and of course we have all these great biotechs and, all kinds of fantastic technology companies, amazing financial services, some great construction companies that work not only regionally, but nationally and internationally. I mean, we have an incredible community, and our businesses are doing great things. We're the home of Marriott, and we have a number of other hospitality companies that are here. Healthcare is huge here, home of Hopkins, right? And government contracting alone, economic imperative. That's like $8 billion a year just to our business community annually, just in that work. And a lot of those companies are health IT companies. We're number one in the nation for health IT, small businesses that sell to the federal government, and number two for all small businesses that sell to the federal government. Not really a surprise, since we're the home of HHS, FDA, NIH, and the kind of companies attracted to working with them are exactly the kind of companies that not only do we have here, but Ben is working very diligently at recruiting more of those companies so that I can work with them once they get here. And so that's very exciting. So last year, that's where we were. Well, a year later, it's like that, and more so and less so. Hospitality took a horrible hit. We all know that. That was a global problem, not unique to Montgomery County or the states. It's every place, right? So that's true. Yet government work continued, and the need to advance health sciences, biotech, and everything that supports that, data analysis. You can't just put things in test tubes. You have to analyze what's going on in there, right? And the whole data element of that. And so these companies are the kind of companies that we had, and we're busily trying to, when I say we, it's the royal we, meaning Ben, is working on bringing those companies here, right? But a lot of those companies also work for the federal government and with the federal government. And so one of the big advantages we have here is that that work didn't necessarily stop. The government didn't shut down over the past year, even though we had a pandemic. So whereas not only did hotels have trouble, our restaurant industry, anything about that, everybody knows that that's been clobbered. Our big concern is, will how do we navigate through to get to the other side of this? And we know that that's in the works, and the vaccines are coming, and so we can see light at the end of the tunnel on that. But I do think that, again, we have a tale of two economies. People used to say commercial and government contracting. Now I would say the companies that were able to pivot and be able to navigate through, and in fact come up with some new products and even some opportunities to help be solution to this situation. And other companies, through no fault of their own, have been dealt a terrible blow and need help. And frankly, the county and the state are doing everything they can do, but the level of difficulty really requires federal help. And our county and state governments are going to require more federal help. So our advocacy has been aiming in that direction of how to get not only our companies help, but our state and local governments, because they can't print their own money. The feds can, but our counties and states cannot. And so this is a pretty important piece to it. And they play an important role. Look at the issue we're having with distribution, and the logistics and all of that. It's been hard. And we've spent a lot of time trying to help people, trying to translate the messages so that businesses could understand what to do and what not to do. And it's constantly changing. So it's been a challenge. But the good news is I have Ben as a partner. I have you as a partner. Our community works hard at trying to help our companies get through all this. Usually we're busy accelerating their success. Right now we're doing that, but we're really trying to help the companies that are struggling.
Yeah. Thank you. Those are great insights, Gigi. Ben, what are your thoughts on the same question? Kind of pre-COVID, where we were, post-COVID. I know you've been focusing a lot on the life sciences and the biotechnology side of things. Maybe you can give us some insight on that.
Sure, Ann. The recovery from COVID-related economic damage in parallel with building a stronger, more resilient and diverse economy has really been our focus. And not just here in Montgomery County, but for the region as well as the state. As Gigi mentioned, we have these incredible and unique assets. We have a highly educated, a diverse workforce, innovative businesses and entrepreneurs. We also have a federal presence. Gigi mentioned NIH and FDA. I should also add in NIST because when I was in the administration, I had a chance to, and also in Congress, work very closely with NIST, and they are our nation's oldest federal laboratory, and really do terrific work. But we also have all of these assets that are helping us to recover from this pandemic. And nevertheless, though, we have, as Gigi mentioned, an uneven recovery. You see small businesses, the hospitality industry, tourism, restaurants that are all being devastated by this economic impact of the pandemic. But we also see that some of the life sciences and some of our technology industries are thriving and doing quite well. And so we've been focused on trying to leverage our life sciences assets to make sure that they can not just be strong, but also to help meet the needs of not just our local economy, but also to meet the public health needs of the nation and globally. We have in Montgomery County some of the significant vaccine research and development for COVID-19 work being done, not just at the federal agencies, at NIH and also FDA, but also at Novavax, at Emergent, that's helping to manufacture the J&J drug, and a number of companies that are working on the research and development and potential manufacture of developing this vaccine that will, we hope, eventually get us sooner than later to some sense of normalcy. The life sciences in Montgomery County has been able to help meet the needs of the nation and the world for global vaccine research and development, but also to help continue its work on life-saving treatments and drugs. For example, we just had in the past year, we tabulated that Montgomery County life sciences companies received $8 billion of federal private and foundational investments into their companies and into the good work that they're doing. So we need to continue to help support that. And our focus is to recover from COVID-related economic damage and build a stronger, more resilient, and diverse economy here in Montgomery County than we ever have before. We have the assets here, and collectively, as a region, we can help make that happen. In Montgomery County, we're quickly becoming the immunology epicenter, from vaccine development to advancements in cell and gene therapy. And in order for us to continue to have the attraction, the retention, and corporate growth in the life sciences industry, we need to make sure that we also have the talent pipeline that can fuel that growth. And that's why USG is being counted on to be such a major player in helping us to continue to advance not just the R&D that's being done, but to allow for companies to confidently make the investments and other folks to make the investments in those companies to ensure that they can continue to grow. And workforce development is one of the key factors in that decision making to be able to allow for that kind of growth.
Yeah. I could chime in right there if you let me, which is to say this, is that talent is the number one problem keeping every one of my CEOs up at night. Number one problem. Best talent. You need the best talent. I mean, after all, it is this community that mapped the human genome, and we helped put a man on the moon. So if we're going to do the next great thing, and there are a lot of next great things to do, solving not only this virus, but cancer and so many other important developments, that should happen here. Just as those other discoveries, we can do this too. But it's really about talent, and regardless of what line of work you're in. It used to be that people were worried about getting hacked. Well, you're going to get hacked, so everybody's over that one now. But talent, I mean, you just buy stuff to deal with that. But talent, that's a critical thing. You've got to really have. And you've got to stay on top of it. And so you've got to have pipelines, the relationships. And so I think really the interesting thing is the talent, what you're up against in terms of staying relevant, meeting the needs, because it's constantly evolving.
Yeah, being able to support an innovation economy that we have in Montgomery County is really almost like a three-legged stool. You have government, industry, and universities. And academic institutions such as USG really do play a critical role, because what you're doing, Ann, is not just educating the next generation of workers, but you also have taken it upon yourselves and the institution to have as a mission being an economic driver. I know that you certainly embraced that. Your predecessor, Stu Edelstein, also was a big champion of being able to utilize USM and USG to make sure that our community can prosper and to be able to help feed that workforce development need, to be able to help develop sector strategies, to help develop curriculums that will help support the growth of companies, and to be able to make workforce development a priority. So thank you for that commitment that you made.
Absolutely. Well, thank you both. I mean, that is such an insightful picture that you've laid out for us. And as long as we're on USG, let's talk a little bit more about USG.
Okay.
I think you're absolutely right, Ben. Economic development is core to our mission, and we embrace it. I think a big part of what USG does is to make education affordable and accessible as well. So many students who might not otherwise attend college because it's too far or it's unaffordable, they take the path of going to Montgomery College and then transferring to USG for their 4-year degree program. I think that this is a really essential part of the overall strategy of Montgomery County, because there is an emphasis on first-generation students from underrepresented communities who might not otherwise attend college, who are going on to do fabulous, wonderful things in Montgomery County. I wonder if you both could talk a little bit about the emphasis on diversity and opportunity that USG plays a role in, our partner Montgomery College plays a clear role in, and all our academic partners who participate through USG play a role in. Could you talk a little bit about the importance of a diverse workforce and the goals of Montgomery County in terms of economic development? Ben, maybe we can start with you.
Sure. One commonality that Gigi and I have, among many, is that we both served on the Montgomery College Board of Trustees at different times. So we both recognize the importance of academic institutions as economic drivers and how critical that is, not just to being able to provide good jobs for the students, but also for our community and our county. So making sure that we can have a ability to have an inclusive economy is something that I know that Gigi and the Chamber of Commerce and we over at MCDC hold of great value and significance. I mean, this was especially underscored over the course of the past summer with some of the social unrest and some of the issues and demands for racial equity, and also to try to end some of the systemic racism that has plagued our society. And so being able to make sure that we can have all segments of our population participate in our economy is critical. It makes good sense. We want to be able to make sure that our companies have the highly talented, highly skilled workers that they need in order to advance. And if we can engage more women and more minorities into that talent pipeline, that is not just good for the community, but also good for the companies and also good, obviously, for the students as well. And so it has to be a priority that we're trying to give great weight towards. And companies also recognize that it's good business sense to be able to attract a more diverse workforce and being able to make sure that to have that workforce, we need to make sure that we give opportunities to those students that be able to fill the talent gaps that are necessary. So this is a priority I know that Gigi has within the chamber. It's one that strategy that we want to support, and USG and Montgomery College have certainly been championing that through the ACES program, through a number of scholarships and opportunities. And I think that's wonderful because we can count on USG and Montgomery College to be a significant player to help us further this significant priority that we have the need for our county.
Ben, I'll also just note that you also serve as a member of the board of advisors of USG as well, which we're very grateful for. So thank you so much. Gigi, can you reflect on that question as well? I know I've heard you speak about this passionately on many occasions, but I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I feel pretty strongly about this topic. And that's why Ben's been such a great partner, and so have you. And so is Montgomery College on this topic. And so oftentimes when we talk about it, we see things through the lens that we bring. And I bring the lens of first generation American. My family on both sides came here from someplace else to look for, to find opportunity. So there's a way of looking at this is about access to opportunity for individuals. At the chamber, I also think about access to opportunity for companies because I want to see that business owner that has the dream of building a business, regardless of their background, their gender, their lifestyle, any of that. And it has, I think we've long understood that it was the right thing to do, a good thing to do, important to get talent in. But I go one step further. I would say it's an economic imperative. It's an imperative for businesses to appreciate. Let's just talk about the Washington region for a moment. So, I mean, we know that people, understand this that work internationally, but let's just talk about Washington. I saw some data just very recently that one of our board member companies did, and the numbers that they crunched showed that in the next 10 years, the growth in wealth in just the Washington, D.C. area is upwards of $1 trillion. And 75% of that is what would be called multicultural, which is multiracial, multi-lifestyle, multi-lots of things. Washington's always been our nation's capital, so of course we've always had an interesting international community, but this is going way past that place. This is talking about people who own and are building wealth in a lot of different communities. And so I would say this is a great opportunity for anybody who's that sort of frontline customer facing kind of company to appreciate that you have to do more than just translate a few pamphlets into a few other languages. You really need to understand what's correct. You have to meet people where they are, which is, as somebody who worked on the Hill, like Ben, I worked for House Energy and Commerce Committee, cut my teeth at that point in my life, figuring out how to get laws written and passed. But you need to know more than that. You need to really get into what is important to different communities and really speak to people and meet them where they are, very much. And it is, as I said, an economic imperative, and I'm excited about that. I'm excited about that because it isn't just some set aside program that some government agency requires you to do. Businesses are beginning to appreciate that that's where the action is. It's where it should be, but it's way past should. And I'd go another step further. I'd say it's risk management. If you're a company and you're dealing with an exciting and diverse population of potential customers, then you need to know how to work with them so that you can mitigate risk. You don't want to have an ad campaign that insults everybody right out of the gate because you only had one kind of person look at it. Oh, I have great stories that I can't repeat right now, but there are some doozies out there of mistakes people have made because everybody sitting around the boardroom table, there weren't enough different points of view, whether it was gender or whatever it was. And so there's some great stories out there. But the reason I say that is that after you had a good laugh about it, you realize, good heavens, that could have been avoided, if there had been more voices that not only were there, but were listened to. So you can't just have people there. They've got to really be, it's in a company's best interest to really embrace what is possible, what is knowable, instead of just, going through the motions. I think businesses are there. A lot of the companies that are on our board of directors are there. So there have been some great conversations recently, and we've got a big upcoming topic discussion event on that coming up later this month. So yeah, I think it's exciting. I think it's an imperative.
Yeah. So listening to both of you reflect on this is so interesting. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about how your organizations have changed over the years, because I'm hearing, much more emphasis on diversity, much more emphasis on inclusion in the broader economy. How has the role of, Ben, starting with you, the Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation, how has it changed over the years, and how has the perspective of what the role of this organization is in Montgomery County changed? I'd love to hear you reflect on, it's in part reflecting the leadership changes, it's in part reflecting how the world around us is changing, it's in part reflecting values of Montgomery County. How do you see the changes in your organization over the last couple of years or last decade or so?
Well, and we're a relatively new organization. The Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation was created just about over almost 4 years ago to privatize the governmental functions of economic development. To, as Ike Leggett, who was a county executive at the time, said, businesses were asking for a seat at the table, so we decided to give them the table. And the EDC was trying to find, I guess, its existential center. And I was brought into the organization first as a board member, but then subsequently as in my current role. And I've just been in the position now for just a little over a year. And I joke with our board chair that when I was asked to come onto this position, I didn't know, or no one told me about the fact that there was going to be a global health crisis that was going to create the greatest economic devastation of our generation. Yet here we are. So, for the organization, we've been focused on trying to make sure that we have the industry-led solutions to the problems of economic recovery and also sustaining our continued economic growth. But traditionally, we've had, as an economic development entity, looked at attraction, retention, and expansion. Those were our major priorities. But because of the pandemic, we've had to supplement our mission to recovery, resilience, and to help move us to the other side of this crisis. And as a industry-led through a board of directors and as a private entity, we have to rely and work very hard to create collaborations and partnerships. And that's one of the reasons why we work so closely with Gigi, and also because we recognize that USG and also Montgomery College are key economic drivers for our county's economy. And so we want to embrace your mission as much as we can and help support your efforts. And that's one of the reasons why we're asking USG to play such a significant role in helping us develop a quantum computing industry and a new technology that's just in its nascency. But if we can get the foundation of creating a significant workforce, then we can attract companies to Montgomery County and leverage the assets that we have in quantum, not just in the county through NIST and our DOE, but also our institutions like University of Maryland College Park, which is just right across the way in Prince George's County, and also has a foothold at USG. And University of Maryland is one of the significant academic players and one of the largest recipients of funding for quantum. And so being able to help promote some of these nascent technologies, being able to help support the life sciences. We just have developed the Bio Boot Camp, which is a innovative program to ensure that we have qualified lab technicians for some of these companies. And so that's why some of the reasons why USG plays such a critical role. As you know, we attract and grow businesses and target industries like hospitality and advanced technologies like quantum, and also with biosciences, especially in the immunology space. And Montgomery County science companies are doing unprecedented work in the vaccine, cell, and gene therapy space, not just responding to COVID-19 and a host of other diseases and conditions with groundbreaking research, vaccines, and treatments. But we're also seeing these companies expand, being able to make the investments to grow jobs, and we need to help continue to feed that growth and that talent pipeline.
Yeah, that's a great overview of just how COVID has impacted the short life of the corporation, but also all the possibilities as well. And we are really eager to figure out how we can better reflect and respond to the demand and the opportunities that are in the county as well, in terms of degrees and all kinds of educational opportunities across the lifetime spectrum. So thank you for that, Ben. Gigi, what about the chamber? How has the chamber changed or adapted or morphed, if you will, over the last couple of years?
Well, frankly, one of the things that when I came on board, the chamber was still very active in political things, and I'm a big fan of nonpartisan policy work. I work with people that are identify whatever party they're with, because I really believe that it should be policy, not politics, and that was a change when I took over this position. And I want to say that not long after the board asked me to take this position, I have to say we led a campaign to establish what is now the Economic Development Corporation. And the reason we did that is for the same reason that follows and flows through much of this conversation, which is that we believed that if we had an independent Economic Development Corporation fully funded by the government to attract and retain companies, but to be able to be independent, to behave in such a way, to be able to have that kind of latitude, they'd be able to pivot more quickly. Now, good thing we did that, because when something like a global pandemic comes along, whether you're the chamber or you're the Economic Development Corporation or your USG, you've got to have the foundations already got to be there. You've already got to have the systems in place to be able to adapt, to be able to pivot, not be able to be so stuck that you can't adapt and innovate and overcome what you're faced with. So I'm happy to say that and this was long before Ben was involved in it, but weren't we lucky that we could get Ben once this was up and running, right? Perfect timing. Sometimes being lucky is better than being good, right? So we're so lucky that we got this really great guy who was willing to take on this responsibility, but also had that appreciation for adapting when you're faced with a global pandemic. I mean, who knew? It's craziness. The chamber adapted. We did, it wasn't hard for us really to adapt because we had very good systems in place. And, we basically, I said, we're going to work from home and technology are us, no problem. Check out what you need. We'll ship it to your house or get it all set up. I mean, we had ourselves organized in 24 hours, no problem, because we had good systems in place. And that's how Ben has been able to pivot without missing a beat, because he has good systems in place. And he spent really, I'm glad you were there when you were, because you were able to, get a lot of things, shifted so that when this crazy thing happened, you could deal with it. And really, we try to help our companies do that. So, a lot of people are focused on, well, did you help people apply for all the different, programs? Yes, of course. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. People needed so much help and so much guidance, and they needed so much additional help just connecting with each other, because, it's still a human environment. We all know each other. We've all met in person, right? And we're on a screen together, but we also have been together. And so we have good relationships already built. So a lot of people need help in that department. That need never goes away. And so I think our chamber's been able to be quite helpful in that department. And so that's been good. And we've been very active at the federal level on behalf of our small business community. And the small business community doesn't have much of a voice on Capitol Hill. Not really, especially not government contractors, which again, $8 billion in revenue, economic imperative, important that we have a voice up there. So, and we're doing that. We do actually have a federal lobbyist, a state lobbyist, a county lobbyist, and an in-house lobbyist. And so we can be a strong, you as a board member know that we are active on all those levels, and we're getting laws passed, and we work with all our legislators at all levels. And then we can work with Ben. He and his team are amazing. They can inform us so that we have the best data, the best information, but also we hear from them, and then we take anecdotal information back. So there's a lot of give and take there. I think it was just everything on steroids, so everything we ever did, and then we're just doing it 20 hours a day. It was like, that's what the past year's been like. I do think that people are pivoting just to look ahead, because I know that you wanted to kind of look forward and say, well, what's next? Because we know what the last 12 months have been like. What are the next 12 going to be like? But I think there are a lot of questions out there. People are anxious, to be able to be in person. Some people are more so than others, but how are we? I think there's a lot about what will happen next. I think some adaptations are going to stay, and I think other things, I think we're going to get to there'll be another wave of evolution in the workplace. How present isn't productive. I can't tell you how many board members came to that realization about all sorts of things. So just there's a lot that happened that I think is useful. I think people were forced to catch up on technology, myself included, by the way. I was kind of doing just fine, but then I had to do better than just fine. And I think a lot of corporate CEOs had to catch up much more in that. And I think that's a good thing, to be able to use this. I would also say that what's once not possible is now possible. The fact that you can access an incredible guest speaker who could be located anywhere in the world. And you can have you've participated with us as we've brought thought leaders in from wherever. We don't have to worry about getting them on a stage in front of a podium to get the best of their thinking, and they can connect with people. So I think that there are some really positive things that came that are about connecting people, even though we've had the backdrop and the cause of it was, a terrible global pandemic. But we will be smarter because our companies are going to come up with the cure and the vaccine and better treatments and all of those things, and then we'll be on to the next whatever the world has to throw at us. Right, Ben?
That's right.
Right, Ann?
Absolutely.
We'll be ready.
Well, we will be. Thanks to the chamber and thanks to Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation, we will be ready. Ben, why don't you Gigi has taken us to this great place of thinking forward. Why don't you take us out with a few thoughts about what comes next for all of us? We'd love to hear from you on that.
Well, I think that trying to make opportunities out of this crisis will require partnership and more collaboration. We have so much in Montgomery County. These assets that we have really can be leveraged and can be a multiplier for some of the new job creation, and also to make sure that we are able to take advantage of some of the emerging technologies and emerging industry sectors. We also need to make sure that some of our existing communities, the ones that are hurting, are able to not just recover, but order to continue operations in a sustainable way. Our hospitality industry, with Marriott as the largest hotelier in the world, and we also, if you include other folks in the hospitality and lodging space, we have over 50% of the publicly traded companies in Montgomery County. So we need to make sure that they can not just sustain themselves in the near term, but also grow, especially once this pandemic is over and the tourism industry is able to rebound. So trying to think a couple of steps ahead, to be, as Wayne Gretzky said, is to not go where the puck is, but go where you think the puck will be. And that means making sure that we have that workforce development that's so critical to help companies grow and to be able to predict in advance where some of these emerging technologies are going to go. As Gigi mentioned, all these companies that are on the cutting edge of helping us provide a COVID-19 vaccine, from Novavax to Emergent Biosolutions to Oncumine to Altimmune to GSK to AstraZeneca. I mean, they're all here. And then Vigene Biosciences just announced last week that they were going to expand with almost 300 new jobs. And we've been able to also pull in international companies like Nobel Pharma from Japan, down from New York, Autonomous Therapeutics, as well as in China with Genetron Health, and then also Germany's Qiagen, and then Canada's Aurinia Pharmaceuticals. So we're continuing to see expansion, and we're continuing to see growth. We want to make sure that this recovery, though, is going to be even, that ultimately that as we get to the other side of this crisis, that we're able to include all segments of our community and our population, and that this can be not just a period of time in which we look back and think, wow, we're glad that that's over. But then we can also say confidently, well, we were able to take the worst and put us on a path to prosperity and make it the best that we could be for the future. And so that's the promise and the hope for trying to do what we're trying to do in terms of the strategies to meet the pandemic. But I think ultimately it's going to be the ability for us to leverage our resources, to work in partnership with organizations like Gigi's Chamber of Commerce and also academic institutions like USG. So, I think working together, we can be successful.
We wouldn't want to waste a good crisis, would we?
That's
No,
right.
we wouldn't.
Well, what a great place to end this terrific conversation. And let me just say what stands out for me is the teamwork between the two of you and your two organizations that is so impressive, and I think is the key to the kind of flexibility and innovation, being able to turn a pandemic, which has, all of the challenges and all the struggles with it, but to try to see how we can grow and become stronger from that. And USG is very proud to be working with both of you on these things, and we look forward to a strong partnership going forward as well. So thank you both so much for your time tonight. We know how busy you both are, and we're really grateful for your time. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ann. Thank you. It's great to see you, Ben.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.